Hi everyone, I'm back today with my August design team project for the Graphics Fairy. This month you can see that I have gone very shabby chic. This is an old book cover that I have just painted with this pretty turquoise color. Over top of that color I have used some crackle medium and then painted over that again with this cream color. Then I have just sealed everything with some matte medium and it's made it extremely smooth. So the texture is really just visual. You can't really feel it very much when you touch the book. So you can see I've done that, of course, with the back as well. And then for the spine wrap, I have used some fabric scraps from a Tilda fabric collection that I had. And I've just sewn them onto a piece of cotton, added a little bit of trim, and then I have sewn on some sequins here, I hope you can see, and some seed beads. Then I've added a book plate that I've painted the same color as the book, stamped on some fabric here, and added more seed beads, and then layered it with some fabric and some trim. And then for the corners, I've just added some fabric book corners really, and on the front I have these bits of trim. And then the closure is just these fabric scraps. So let me show you the inside. So the inside is really just filled with lots of images from the Graphics Fairy, as well as some vintage pieces that I have as well. So here I've left it fairly blank. You could add a pocket here if you wanted to. This was just a piece of scrapbook paper that I had on my desk that I thought went well with the colors. So this is a vintage envelope, and I've added just a fabric ruffle here and a little bulb pin with some trim. I've added a pocket here, and in the pocket I have this vintage tag. The color is perfect for this project. And then I've stamped one of my die cuts here. And then this is from the Blissful Blossoms collection. So what that is part of a place card. So if you were having a party, of course this would be, you would cut these out and write everyone's name on them. And you can see here that I have just cut out the bottom of this. So there's so many different options with the Graphics Fairy. They have so many different things that you can do, and you can use them as they're meant to be, like this place card, or you can alter them like I did, very simply, to create a label or something else for your project. I've used die cuts throughout this book. This one I've used as a tab. I folded in half, added a little bit of coffee dyed doily, and then I've carried the sequin theme throughout the book as well. This is a pattern paper from one of the Graphics Fairy paper packs. Those, if you head over to the blog, which I have linked below, there's a list of all of the collections that I've used from the membership site, the premium membership site, and you will find this in that list. This is actually a scanned piece from some embroidered dresser scarves that my grandmother had done, and so I have just scanned it, and then I've used it as a pocket here. This is one of the really pretty floral die cuts from the Vintage Florals collection from the Graphics Fairy, and then I have this vintage letter. This is just a little vintage love letter. So I thought that was an interesting piece to include, and the colors go great here. Here I've clipped on one of my favorite images from the garden party kit that was out a few weeks ago. Another fabric ruffle there. Center the signature I've left blank. Great place to add some journaling or some pictures. And as you know, through my projects, I do like to leave lots of space for journaling. A couple of images that I've got clipped here. This really pretty journaling card, and then another floral piece. And I've just added a fabric ruffle here to this index card. And this is a pocket that I have added this really kind of open trim to a piece of scrapbooking paper and then just adhered that to make this pocket. I've used throughout some coffee dye paper. This is some avocado dye paper and just little bits of trim here. This is a piece of vintage hanky that I have made into a pocket, and then I've just added one of the printable pieces from the Graphics Fairy, and that would be just a great place to do some journaling on the back. More journaling space, another beautiful image. I believe that's from the Blissful Blossoms collection. So many gorgeous florals in the Graphics Fairy bundles. This is a vintage French piece, and you'll see the rest of it a bit later on. Some journaling space. Here I've got a paper bag. I've just added a small window envelope, and then I've just done some stamping around the edges and around the window, and then I've just added an embossed tag here and a little tab. So this is the same die cut that you see here actually, and I've just folded it differently to create a different look. In the bag I've got another of those index cards. I've added a ruffle and a stamp to that one. On the back of that I just have a few pieces of paper here I've added just as a spot to journal with some vintage trim and a stamp. Here this is some vintage crocheted lace in this fabric pocket with another die cut there. And then this is a frame from the Lace Frames bundle, and I have just added, I don't know if you can see, I think you can see there, I've added a piece of acetate and an image, and just added a few sequins to make a little shaker card, and then just backed it on the back. This is a vintage day planner page for August. I thought that was a good addition. This is the center of the signature. I've printed one of my vintage hankies onto some vellum. I did this in a project last month as well with a different piece, and this is very similar. I've added a little bit of the edge of that to this pocket with some washi tape, and then just created this little vellum booklet just for a little bit of extra journaling space. On this side, I've just clipped a pretty journaling card. So there's the other part of that August day planner page. This is the inside of the vintage envelope that you saw right at the beginning of this journal. I've just folded it around this page. And then this is another piece of vintage crochet trim, and then I've just added this collaged tag using some of my fabric scraps again and trim and a few sequins. And then in this pocket I have a couple of vintage pieces, this vintage postcard, and then this vintage letter from what does that say, 1954. And again it's from, I believe that's August. And then on this side, I've just added more of that vellum and another fabric piece and a couple of printables from the Graphics Fairy. This side of the bag, I've added another little notebook page and a little kind of tag that opens up. And this is the other part of that vintage French piece that you saw earlier on. I just love this calligraphy. And then I have used my vintage hanky again. I've scanned it and printed it on vellum here as a page. And more of that vintage trim. Another pocket with a bit of trim, and then these beautiful printables from the Graphics Fairy. More journaling space. Another vintage piece here. Then here I've clipped, this is another vintage French piece from 1937. And then I have this really pretty label, and then another of my die cuts that I've stamped. Center of the signature, I've got this vintage French tag and just a pretty image. This is just some vellum that I've used. I just got that at Michael's actually. I like the texture that it adds. It just adds a different visual. This is from the Antique India Patterns paper. I just love this paper, so I've added a tab there. Another stamped die cut, and then in here I've added a few more die cuts, just little labels that you could use throughout, and then I've just made this little shaker, and that is the negative space from the die cut tabs that you've been seeing throughout. And so I've just sewn it onto one of those die cuts and stamped it on the back. This is another vintage postcard. Another tab. This is a vintage envelope, and I've attached it here. I've added a sheer pocket, and then I've just created this tag for a little bit of extra journaling. And then on this side, I've just added this piece of, if I can get it out, goodness, this piece of scrapbook paper that I had that really goes with the colors in this journal. On this side, I've added this tag that I've made, and really this is just a few pieces of washi tape and fabric that I've added to the side of this, and then just stamped my note stamp. Another fabric ruffle here, and that is the back. So that is my project for this month from the Graphics Fairy. You can find the links to the premium membership site and the Graphics Fairy blog below. And this journal is available in my Etsy shop when I post this video, and you can find the link there as well. So thank you all for joining me today, and I will see you back soon.